operations, and we hope also, especially ones that impact students, like you know, your applications for financial aid, registrar, et cetera, and we hired some outside consultants who are experts on this to basically identify strategies for us. So that's the beginning stage, and the experts are actually here. So if you want to ask questions, detailed questions about the strategy for saving, we hope, tens of millions of dollars by operating more efficiently, I encourage you to ask them. So unfortunately, that only takes us part of the way, and I'll now come to sort of, well, the first thing that, of course, is of concern to students is that, unfortunately, students have to participate in this as well as all of the rest of the community. And so, as you know, the Office of the President has recommended to the regents extraordinarily large fee increases, right? Correct?
We're not in the same boat as you.
Right. So you'll have a chance to ask the question. So later. So obviously none of us are happy about this, but that is part of the financial strategy going forward. If you say, you know, what impact will this have on students, then, you know, again, welcome questions on this. Clearly, for middle-class students, this is extraordinarily difficult. Everyone recognizes that, and I'll come back to attempts to ameliorate that. For students on Pell Grants, who are about a third of our students, so that's family incomes under $45,000 a year, and that also happens to include the absolute majority of our underrepresented minority students. The relevant number, I think as all of you know, is not fees or the total cost of education at Berkeley, which is going to go up to about $30,000, but what's called the self-help level, which is the actual cost that the student has to pay through a combination of loans and work. For the last several years, we've kept the self-help level fixed at about $8,500, which is large, but a lot less than $30,000. And one of the peculiarities of our financial aid system here at Berkeley is that since 1/3 of the fee income is transferred as financial aid to primarily our students from low-income families, one of the effects of increasing fees is that there's significantly more financial aid available. And so the low-income students from low-income families will likely not see their costs go up next year. But on the other hand, this will have a significant impact on middle-class families, students from middle-class families, and clearly we're going to need to find new sources of financial aid for those students. One of the other strategies, which also has which impacts students that we're pursuing, as I mentioned in my beginning comments, that we've been, for several years, over-enrolled by about 2,500 students. That is, that there are 2,500 students above our target, Californians, for whom we have received no income whatsoever from the state to pay for the cost of their education. And so we've been under pressure from the faculty to ramp down the number of students that we admit. The strategy that we're pursuing is basically, as we ramp down towards the target of funded students from the state, that rather than leave those seats empty, we're going to replace them by out-of-state students. And I know this has mixed consequences. On the other hand, the revenue that will be generated if we follow this over 4 years and we replace all of these unfunded students by out-of-state students will be, the total is about $60 million, an extraordinary amount of money, which will greatly reduce, as it comes in, pressures, for example, for future increases in fees for Californians. So, one of the other areas which we've been working hard on, of course, is fundraising, private fundraising for, first of all, for support of faculty. You know, we have a fundraising campaign with an ultimate goal of $3 billion, and we've successfully raised $1.6 billion so far. For graduate students, our fundraising has been extraordinarily successful. So for graduate students, we've raised already, including amounts of the Hewlett chairs, the chair income that's dedicated to graduate students, about $150 million in financial aid for graduate students, which has had a huge positive effect. We've also raised a significant amount of money for undergraduate students, but we have a significant shortfall. And a significant goal of our fundraising campaign going forward will be to raise $300 million total of funds for financial aid for undergraduate students, and much of those, the income from that fundraising will be directed towards middle class students, that is extending our financial aid up into the middle class. But to be totally frank, this takes time. This is going to take 3 or 4 years. This is not going to solve the problem for this spring or for next fall. Frank Erie and I are also pursuing what you might call an out-of-the-box solution, and that, as some of you may have read about it, and this has been surprisingly to both of us, I think, well received, which is that we've essentially called on the Obama administration instead of, well, not that I necessarily want to oppose what they've done in terms of saving the banks, et cetera, but we've appealed to them to save public higher education. I'll just give you one number. If the federal government were to invest in public education across the country 1/2 of the amount they invested in AIG, they could permanently solve the problem for Berkeley and the other top 20 to 25 public research universities in this country. So this is not a crazy amount of money, and it's amounts of money already being spent. We have a very specific strategy about this, and pursuing this. Frank and I published an op-ed in the Washington Post, and I've been getting calls from university leaders around the country about how do we move forward on this. And in addition, I've met with people in the Obama administration who have been surprisingly receptive to these new ideas. So I'm very hopeful about this as a long-term strategy. Unfortunately, the people in the administration, particularly in finance, say, yes, but we have to solve the healthcare problem first. So, but they're cognizant of the challenges that we face in universities like Berkeley. What can students do? So one option is a strike. You can decide how productive you might be that and that's up to you. I personally don't support striking, but that's up to you. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I tell you what I do think you should do, which is that I think when you go home either on Thanksgiving vacation or over the holiday break, I think you and your family and your siblings and all your friends should go to your local legislator's office. That is, don't go to Sacramento. You can go to Sacramento if you want, but it's more powerful if you go to the local assembly person or to the local senator and have everyone say, you represent us, and what are you going to do about public education? Our kids are suffering and they deserve support. And get a commitment on the spot from them. In terms of Sacramento, there's being organized a quote-unquote march on Sacramento that will be the UC system, Cal State, and the community colleges. And I hope this will be next spring when they're doing the budget. And I hope that literally, this will match the March on Washington, which is that there will be hundreds of thousands of students and student supporters in Sacramento, literally hundreds of thousands, appearing on one day and demanding that the legislature reverse its policies and invest in higher education in California. So with that, I want to thank you, and I'll now hand it over to the Provost, George Breslau.
Right. Let me start by saying I'm in my 39th year as a professor at Berkeley, so I've seen it all, but I've never seen it this bad. We've had major cuts in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s, in the early 2000s, and all of them were very serious and hurt badly, but they were surmountable, and they looked to be cyclical in that, you could take the position or take solace in the idea that this too shall pass and it will be another decade before